Captain Midnight.
Be aware, this video will feature spoilers. There's a scene fairly early on in Avatar Fire and Ash that I really liked. Jake Sully and his old foe, Miles Quaritch, have formed a short-lived alliance to try to save Spider, a son to both of them. This version of the Colonel has been living in his Na'vi body for a while now, the human version of him long gone. Jake talks to him about this, reaching out to his greatest enemy. He sees in him a desire to embrace being a Na'vi, just as he did, telling him that he has new eyes, all he has to do is open them. But the response is non-committal. A part of what Jake is saying is true. When the Colonel is back among humans, you can tell how out of place he is. He's not a peer to, General Carmela Soprano. He's a freak show, a tool to be used. But I think there's very little about Na'vi life that appeals to Quaritch. The kumbaya vibes, serving some ancient goddess that he has no use for, that's just not him. Shortly after, he meets them, the Ash people, and something clicks. He barely seems to mind getting taken hostage by these guys, because this is a tribe he can fully understand. The Ash clan, with their rejection of Iwa, their pure drive for power, and their alluring leader, Varang. If this is what being a Na'vi can mean, sign him up. I loved this inversion of Jake's story taken to a darker place, in scenes featuring two of the movie's better actors. And I wish I liked the rest of the film as much as I liked this particular story thread, but I don't. I find Ash and Fire to be a pretty mixed bag with some high highs, some oddly low lows, all evening out to a movie that I don't see winning over those who have never warmed to this series. I found myself somewhere in the middle, often admiring the ambition and scope of the Avatar movies more than truly loving them. Still, I think it's the bad guys here that have tipped this over into the positive column for me. I'll get back to them, but first I want to talk a little bit more about the film as a whole. We pick up weeks after The Way of Water with the Sully family still struggling. Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana turn in some really effective performances, Saldana especially, whose Neytiri is filled with grief, rage, and hatred towards humans. The contradictions and emotion that come out of dealing with all of that, while raising a family with humans in it, is pretty raw and powerful. James Cameron is a big advocate for this particular kind of motion capture technology, and I think Neytiri continues to be maybe the best display of what it's capable of. I think in those domestic scenes, Cameron's blunt and to-the-point dialogue really works in the movie's favor, shedding any of the winking self-awareness that we've come to expect from blockbusters, and delivering scenes of aliens having marital problems that feel grounded even in this strange reality. There are, though, moments where the dialogue works against Fire and Ash. Chief among them, let's talk about the kids. I'll just say it, I really think the Sully children drag these last two movies down. To go through the ones with the biggest roles here, there's Loake, who narrates this one and gets a lot of dramatic moments, despite kind of getting lost in the shuffle in the back half of the movie. Spider, who kind of functions as the MacGuffin for this entire story, being a human who is changed to be able to breathe on Pandora. And on paper, there's a lot to like about Spider. I like this concept of him being torn between these two father figures, his life with the Na'vi being forever complicated by who he is. I think there's a lot there. The problem I have with Spider is that this actor, he's just not very good in these movies. Sometimes Cameron is not helping him out with the dialogue either, there's not much under the surface with this character. In a movie where people generally just kind of bluntly state their feelings up front constantly, he's maybe the worst at actually delivering those types of lines. Even the good scenes with Spider, like his near execution, or like Stephen Lang really trying to connect with him as a father, showing him a lot of unexpected kindness, work despite this actor and not because of him.
I wish to transform myself into the bodies of these great beasts.
In a cast filled to the brim with great actors giving very larger-than-life performances, jumping back to the kids, and especially Spider, always felt like a huge come-down to me. Acting in these purely computer-generated environments can't be easy, and honestly, I just don't think a lot of them are up to the task. Of course, there's one Sully child different than the others, Kiri, played by the 76-year-old Sigourney Weaver. Kiri is an interesting one, because the performance does feel incredibly odd sometimes. Like, the fact that a much older actor is playing her may not be obvious visually, but it definitely comes through in other ways. That could be a problem, but this character, being this like quasi-clone, is kind of out of place in her own life, so it mostly works, I think. To me, everything great and frustrating about the films of James Cameron, especially at this point in his career, is summed up in her most memorable scene. Near the film's climax, she has no choice but to try plugging in to communicate with the goddess and plea for help one last time. Something she's been told could have disastrous results for her if she ever tries again. She's an immaculate conception, seemingly rejected by the very goddess who created her. But of course, she doesn't give up. Her brothers and sisters join her, literally reaching out and picking her up to help bring her closer to Eywa. Finally, she's made it. Kiri hasn't just been accepted by the goddess, she's looked upon her face. This sequence is a lot of things. Awe-inspiring, hokey, moving. It's pretty bluntly obvious and brings all the subtext to the surface like a sledgehammer. I'm not sure if it's good screenwriting, but I think it's definitely powerful filmmaking and carries a climax that starts well, but I think gets a little too long, culminating in Jake and Stephen Lang fighting on a floating Super Smash Bros. Stage. Let's get back to Lang's character for a minute. His situation is really out there. It's really like something out of a 60s sci-fi novel. He's a Na'vi with the mind and memories of a dead man who hated them. A guy hellbent on pushing his mission forward even as he stands towering over his superiors. A constant reminder that he's not one of them and never will be again. Oddly, I think the peak of the movie for me, when I was most invested, ended up being when his alliance with the Ash clan became cemented. He captured Jake and took him back to the human base. We watch as Edie Falco's general comes out in her goofy mech suit, trying to maintain authority over the situation. He comes out on top in that situation, but it's clear that he's becoming more and more invested in this Na'vi tribe than he is in the human world. Later, he starts dressing like them, which seems to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and the humans know that they're losing control of him. In the last movie, he learned to be Na'vi merely as a military necessity to track Jake Sully. Here, among the Ash people, he finds something genuine. Like him, they're warriors. They rely on strength and fire, and they hate the softness of these tree goddess worshippers. His relationship with Varang is disturbing, but it also humanizes him, showing that he is capable of working with the Na'vi, but only through a mutual respect for the power of strength and violence. Why be a pawn of the humans when you could be by the side of a warlord? The Ash people add some real variety and texture to the society of the Na'vi, I think. Varang's rejection of the goddess gives the bad guys of these movies another angle on villainy that was really needed when the motivations of the human invaders has really stayed the same after 3 movies. Unlike Jake or Neytiri, who constantly seek guidance from the spirit tree or the ancestor, Varang answers to no one but herself and the necessities of her people. So of course, she's going to be fascinated with human weaponry and the edge that it can provide her in battle. There is nothing to fall back on for her, just the blunt and brutal reality of life on a planet where the living deity has rejected them. I think in a way, the couple both feel rejected by their own societies, and that gives their villainy some interesting shades that hasn't always been there in the past for this series. Visually, the Avatar movies really remain on the cutting edge. I have to be honest though, I know that matters a little less to me than it does for many of its biggest fans. I appreciate what they're able to pull off, but there's still this uncanny valley quality to the imagery that can be really tough for me in a movie as long as this was. I know for many fans though, like the world and how it looks, that's the whole point, and I think that's why Avatar will never truly feel like one of my personal favorites. What I'm drawn to though is this strange and extremely extravagant mishmash of 60s and 70s sci-fi novel concepts that feel straight out of Vietnam War era fiction. And concepts as weird as an alien clone of a dead soldier goes on a strange trip with the warrior leader of a nihilistic fire people. There's elements of Avatar that are so strange and compelling to me, even as Cameron grounds all of this in family melodrama that can feel pretty by the numbers sometimes and work really well at other points. I think in Fire and Ash, it's the villains that are truly bringing something new to the table of the series, providing something different in a movie that, in a lot of ways, feels maybe a little too similar to the last one. I think that was enough for me, but I'm sure for many others, just another chance to visit Pandora is all they needed. But what do you think? Did Fire and Ash click for you, or was it kind of a miss? Are you baffled by why people love these, or are you one of the Avatar faithful? I will be reading the comments down below, and I want to hear from you. Okay, confession time. I was not expecting the next big cultural rabbit hole I'd fall into to involve a blue cartoon dog from Australia, yet here we are. Because somehow, Bluey has quietly become one of the most beloved kids shows ever. I always knew it was absurdly popular, but I never really understood why, until Lindsay Ellis dug into it. Her new Nebula exclusive, Bluey Adults, dives into the weird, fascinating world of grown-ups who are totally hooked on this kids show. It's sharp, hilarious, and surprisingly moving, unpacking how Bluey manages to hit emotional notes that resonate with adults while still being aimed squarely at preschoolers. And yeah, Ellis also explores the part of the fandom that get a little complicated. If you're curious, the easiest way to watch it is on Nebula, where we're now offering free trials. That means you can check out Bluey Adults completely free, along with my videos ad-free and loads of exclusive stuff from other great creators. Annual memberships are currently half off. That's just $30 a year or $250 a month. And the same deal applies to Nebula gift cards, which honestly make for ridiculously good stocking stuffers. You can jump in by using my link go.nebula.tv/CaptiveMidnight or just scan the QR code on screen.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.